everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I'm Redshirt Down, and this is the series Trash to Treasure, where I show you how cheap and easy it is to play the best format in Magic. Come along with me as I discover what this random pile of red cards will add to our cube today. Ashmouth Hound is a decent aggressive creature. It's a goblin piker that can often trade up thanks to the additional damage dealt by its ability. This probably makes the cut. Mount Velis Manticore is an okay body with a pretty useful effect. It's got a once per turn discard, enabling your madness strategies while giving some additional value along the way. Not sure if it's quite strong enough to survive the cuts, but for right now, it's an easy add. Mogg War Marshal. What a great army in a can. For just 2 mana, it gives you 2 gobos right away, and assuming that you don't pay the echo cost, which you shouldn't, it'll give you another next turn. Lord of Shatterskull Pass. What a cool rare to find in this collection. It comes down as a hill giant, which isn't great, but if it lives through the turn, you're attacking for 6 on the next. I'll add it in for now, if only for the cool factor, until we see more of what we're working with. Blade Tribe Berserkers, another hill giant with upside. This will signal to your drafters that artifacts matter in your environment, but with it being an ETB as opposed to a static ability, hurts the chances that I add this to the final list. Ogre Gatecrasher, just what this cube needs, another hill giant. I doubt that even if we keep walls as an archetype, they'll be strong enough to require a hate piece. Rimrock Knight, a great find. Another piker with upside. This one comes stapled to a combat trick that just may get you there. Prodigal Pyromancer, the color-fixed version of one of Magic's most iconic cards.
By what name are you known?
There are some who call me Tim.
Its stats are bad, but that one ping is so versatile, I can't see skipping this guy. Reckless Worm, another color-shifted callback from Planar Chaos. This will help build out the Madness archetype, as we'll sometimes just get a big body for a little investment. Firemaw Kavu, another twist on the classic, Flametongue Kavu. It's pretty expensive, so it may be cut on costs alone, but a 2-for-1 is rarely bad. Simian Spirit Guide, one last Planar Chaos callback. Usually used in much higher powered environments, and not because of its body. I'll add it in for now, as a spell, but the card disadvantage might just be too much for this cube. Pathmaker Initiate, a good way to get in with your little guys, and there's no rule against pumping them afterward. Oilifant, this is more like it. What a great find to come out of Lord of the Rings. This whole cycle is super valuable. Fix your mana early, even better with type duels. Play it in the late game, or even reanimate it if you're in the right environment. Rorim Lancer. If we're going to be running the ring tempting mechanic, this card's pretty decent. An evasive body that comes down on turn 1, and it's a knight to boot. Added for now, until we reach a verdict on the whole ring mechanic. Scrapwork Mutt ties together a bunch of disparate archetypes. It's a piker for aggro, it discards a card for the Madness decks, and it's an artifact as well. These type of glue cards are almost sure things to add into a cube, as having a medium power card wanted by so many different decks makes the drafting process much more interesting. Ardent Elementalist. I sure hope we find this in its normal frame. The stats are bad, but it's one of the few red cards that ever buy back spells from the graveyard. Very good for the Spellslinger types. Festival Crasher, another fantastic Spellslinger card in the ugliest frame. Swinging in with this guy will certainly put your opponent in a bind. Embereth Shieldbreaker, a piker that even vintage cubes will run. The removal half is slow, but having a sideboard card in your main is worth the slot. Orcish Conscripts, a classic old red card with okay stats needing to have a downside. A 1-mana 2/2 is pretty good, but needing Battalion just to turn it on is the rough sell. Brimstone Trebuchet is another glue card I'm liking, at least for now. It's an artifact, a wall, and the worse half of Tom, but it'd be more reasonable at 2 mana, so it's probably gone if and when we remove the wall archetype. Gutter Snipe, a classic payoff for Spellslingers. Get in there, buddy. Weary Prisoner, a decently statted wall that can even turn itself on. But, just like with the ring, adding Daybound Nightbound comes with a complexity cost. It's not worth the slot if it's adding all that overhead with it. Twin Shot Sniper, another glue card that's great for multiple people. It can be an uncounterable kill spell, or a baby FTK, or just that last artifact to guarantee synergies are online. Of the few 4s that we're going to keep, this is probably one of them. Occam Hellhound, not nearly as strong in an environment without fetches. It can still attack on turn 2 for 2 damage. For that reason, it'll be an easy include. Viashino Lashclaw. This is a fairly complex card, hiding in a very simple body. Assuming that we build the Madness deck, this is worded in a way that if you discard then cast something with Madness, like say, Reckless Worm, it also gets haste. That sounds like a secret achievement for this cube, so get in there. Erebor Flamesmith, another Gutter Snipe. We'd love a little redundancy of effects for the archetype, but what I'm really looking for at 2 mana is Young Peasy. Gorilla Shaman, Pauper All-Star, gets rid of pesky low mana value artifacts. Much better in powered or higher power cubes. We'll give it a shot in ours as well. What a weird card to get signed. I don't know who by, but if anyone has any ideas, please let me know. I'd love to hear the story. Ah, here's our boy. Flametongue Yearling, child of Flametongue Kavu. Scales well into the late game, and gets good value when cast on 2. Love it so much, get into the cube. Classic cube staple, Monastery Swiftspear. Great aggressive threat that'll make your opponent second guess the combat step. Good card all around, another definite in our 360. Voldaren Epicure, another valuable pickup. It's an aggressive card that gives you 2 game pieces and 1's an artifact. It's a vampire, and the blood token helps out the Madness deck. Another good glue card for the final build. Blood Petal Celebrant. Now this is a frame. A French vanilla piker that gets value after it dies. We'll give it a shot for now. Alluring Suitor. I'm going to give this card a shot too. Bad stats, but it can transform on the turn you play it, and when you do, it gives you a mana refund. Hoarding Ogre. It'd be cool if we could add in at least one die rolling card per color. It can really give your players some exciting moments. But even at its worst, this is just yet another hill giant. Thermo Alchemist, another 2-mana card for the Spellslinger decks that happens to have Defender. This may even make the cut if we get rid of the other walls. Here's 2 more 2-mana Prowess creatures. It looks like we won't have a problem building that Tempo Spellslinger deck after all. Speaking of, here's Flame Channeler, a 2-mana 2/2 that transforms when a spell of yours deals damage, like a lightning bolt, a shock, or whatever else Red's going to have an abundance of. After it transforms, it's a stronger creature that can get you extra value for the low cost of 1 mana. Embereth Veteran, a red Savannah Lion with upside. It's got 2 relevant creature types and can self-sacrifice to give another creature more value. As I finish up this section, it's worth mentioning that I'm passing by a lot of cool creatures that are otherwise missing the density of effect. Knight synergies and heroic cards are being skipped because from the sets I'm pulling, they just don't have enough in them. When you're doing this with your own bulk, add in what you find fun, because you can always buy more cards for whatever archetype you're looking to build. Hearth Elemental is a serious contender for the 6-drop slot in this cube. I'm only going to want 1, and this one has cost reduction attached to it. Plus, it's got a discard spell attached that more than likely will become a refill effect, much like the Flame of Keld. Imodane's Recruiter, what an incredible find. Excellent 3-drop with relevant creature types, and it's got a good Army in a Can spell you're not sad to cast either. It was the bane of Standard for a spell, and definitely can punish in this environment. That'll finish up our creature segment. I feel like Red's in a very good spot. A lot of great options to fill in planned archetypes. Now, onto the non-creature permanents, artifacts, and enchantments to build on that momentum. I don't expect to find too many game-changing cards here, but let's get into it. Crystal Slipper. I was really hoping for the Energizer Bunny instead. Nevertheless, I want to have a copy of this effect. Being able to swing in with surprise damage is never a bad thing. I really wish this Fireforger's Puzzle Knot had been a spell bomb instead. This card just does too little for too much mana. Bitter Reunion, one of the best Tormenting Voices. The drawback is it doesn't trigger most of the Spellslinger cards, but for that cost, you get a one-time haste. Add it in for now, and we can debate the merits later. Rising of the Day. This is a card I think is still being slept on for Commander. It's an upgraded Fervor at a much lower price point. That said, enchantments like this are usually too slow for Cube. The tempo you gain from giving your creatures haste is being spent by taking the turn off. Buy these now though, because I guarantee they'll get pricey the further from printing we go. Arms Race is an expensive sneak attack. Not only do we not have enough valid targets, but the cubes that do don't want to waste 8 mana on the effect. It's a no from me. This is a cool one as long as we keep the ring mechanic. Fiery Inscription has all the drawbacks of being a 3-mana do-nothing, but it's a hard to interact with payoff. Added for now, but we'll see if we even keep the ring. Before we get into the instance, I've got the question of the day to ask. Do you like these episodes being split, with one to add cards to the cube and one to cut? Or did you prefer the old way, where both parts were stitched together to make the longer video? Let me know in the comments below. On to the instance. This should be fun. I distinctly remember there being some really good burn hanging around, so let's see what degenerate things we can get into. Shiv and Fire, Shock, Dual Shot, Play with Fire, Lava Dart, Lightning Axe. It's like I'm reading off a list of Red's greatest hits. Lightning Bolt as well. This may be the single highest power section of the whole environment. Bolt Bend. Pretty sure this is worth a couple of bucks. Again, another EDH great, but not really going to work in this environment. Monstrous Rage, the bane of Standard, at least the last time I played Arena. I've even seen some creators mentioning that they'd like it banned. It's a cool combat trick that'll give you some additional value afterwards. Fling. We've already got this effect on a black body, but it's always nice to have redundancy. I'd like to take a minute to talk about Frostbite. Many times, a curator looking to add this card into their cube will errata their basics to be snow, to make sure it's online. They can do this because usually you'd like your land base to have a good mix of duals, so using basics is a real cost to building that deck. But in this bulk cube, we're going to have a lot of terrible fixing lands. They are needed to let people cast the spells they'd like to cast, but they're also a real cost to use over the enter the battlefield untapped basics. Cards like this just punish people using non-basics too hard. As always, in your cube, make your own rules, but for me, this one's got to be a no. Cast into the Fire, the canon way of removing the One Ring. The card's modality can't be understated. Being able to get rid of 2 small creatures or 1 scary artifact gives this sideboard piece more flexibility. Speaking of the modal spells,
A braid.
here's a braid.
Another artifact
doesn't get
hate
much
piece
better than this.
that just does other things.
That's going to finish the instance. We've got some really powerful spells hiding in this stack. It's going to be difficult to make cuts. On to the sorceries, where I'm looking for more damaging spells, maybe a small wrath or two, and some card selection spells. Fireball, the classic card to end the game. Highly unlikely to find channel in here as well, but no matter what X is, it's giving red a way to close the game. Grape Shot, a fair card until your list is more broken. Storm needs a high density of rituals and card draw to work, and this cube won't be it. Cool find, but never getting added. Faithless Looting, one of the strongest card selection spells ever printed. Very strong, but luckily it also scales well with its environment. Crush the Weak. It's good to find another small wrath. It's symmetrical, but any good Magic player knows how to bend the definition of that word. That's going to finish up red, and I think we came out looking great. A lot of good aggressive creatures backed up by some of the strongest burn spells in the game. Red just may be the strongest color in this cube, and that's okay. Don't forget about today's questions on how you feel about these videos. Do you personally like having each color split into 2 shorter episodes, or did you prefer they be all in the same one? Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.